You're listening to Homerun on CBC Radio 1. I'm your host, Sue Smith. And a group of gardeners in Morin-Heights are on a mission to create a mini ecosystem. They're building a permaculture garden. Heather Jackson is the co-founder of the garden in Morin-Heights, but she joins us from her house in Wentworth North. Hello.
Hello.
So what is a permaculture garden?
We can start with permaculture, which is a pretty loaded term, but was coined in 1978 by an Australian biologist named Bill Mollison. And it's essentially a conscious design method and maintenance of agriculturally productive ecosystems integrating both people and landscape.
Okay, translate that.
Yeah, well, it's about really making a sustainable garden in our communities, and it's utilizing polyculture, that is growing everything kind of all together at once.
So when you say sustainable garden, does that mean that you don't have to garden it, or does that just mean that it's not filled with annuals, that it's all perennials, things that keep growing all the time?
Well, we focused on perennials, and there is a lot of maintenance and planning that goes into our idea. But generally, once a permaculture garden kind of gets up and running and productive, it is pretty well taken care of itself if it's well done.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So now I know why you did this. No more weeding.
Well, yeah, sometimes.
In theory, right?
It depends on what weeds that you're trying
of
to
course.
be growing, right?
One man's weeds is another person's treasure, right?
Yeah.
So why did you decide to do this project?
Well, we started this project in conjunction with the Farmers Market that we founded in Morin-Heights, and it's about creating sustainable environments in our community. And since we all like to eat great food, why not be able to grow it as well? It all tastes better when we're growing it, and we're all working together to grow this food.
So what kind of food do you grow then in your permaculture garden?
We have many varieties of apples, pears, plums, and other cane fruits, such as lots of raspberries and gooseberries. We've got strawberries in there, and lots of flowers as well, and lots of pollinators, so it attracts the insects.
Is everything edible in your garden?
Pretty much everything. There's some things that, are edible. They don't taste so great, but we're definitely focusing on lots of medicinal herbs and fruits for sure, because they'll last for generations, hopefully.
And so, if you could walk us through what your garden looks like how big is it and how is it laid out?
Our garden is 4,000 square feet. It's about 50 by 80 feet. It's a small sloped plot behind the local library, so it's right downtown, as downtown as Morin-Heights can get. And it was a fairly steep slope that we were starting with, and because water is such a huge part of gardening, and to be lugging around a watering can or a hose is just not possible. What we did when we were building it in 2014 was that we got a mini excavator in and built swales into our garden. So it looks like kind of like a big staircase, basically. So we were digging into the ground, taking a lot of the organic material that was already there, and then just kind of piling it on top of each other, and creating sort of like these hills mixed with sort of like a glorified ditch into making these gardens.
You sound like you had fun doing this.
It was a lot of fun. I don't drive an excavator, but I was watching and raking. It was unfortunately pretty rainy the days that we were doing this, but it was really interesting to see the change in the landscape. It was pretty barren before. It was just an empty lot between these two houses in the middle of town, and we were just seeing all this potential of land to be growing.
And when you talk about sort of an ecosystem, I understand that the other aspect of having a permaculture garden is attracting insects and different kinds of animals. How has that worked out?
It's actually been working out really well. We've had a local artist come and be a part of our collective garden and make these beautiful hand-painted signs at the entrances of our garden saying bee sanctuary, zone de pollinisation. for a garden, to be able for people to understand the need for insects and other animals such as frogs and toads and even mammals to come and incorporate themselves into our garden to increase the biodiversity and to also give these animals a place to live in town. A lot of the times with construction, natural habitat is lost, so we're trying to concentrate habitat into certain places where they can live and thrive and also pollinate our plants to be able to eat the cherries and the apples. We need these insects.
Strikes me that there are a lot of sort of like-minded people in Morin-Heights. Certainly driving around there are lots of beautiful gardens and greenery. What has been the reaction to your project?
It has been really positive. We've been really lucky to have the municipality see the value in what we're doing and to be able to support us and have neighbors come and be a little bit shocked at first because, it's not your typical garden. There's no borders. There's no sort of arrangements that a lot of people are used to. But as soon as you sort of walk through the garden and you kind of show people exactly sort of like what's going on, and you walk through the paths, and we have benches there to sit, so it's a very interactive thing. So as soon as people sort of come into the space and they look around, you can just see really the bounty that we'll be able to have here in such a small space.
And so what are your plans for the future of the garden? What are your hopes for it? I mean, I guess if it's permaculture, it's supposed to be there forever, right?
Yes, and well, a lot of these plants we bought them when they're first or second year, so they're still pretty small. So really, production should start kicking in about 2 to 3 years, so we're able to harvest a lot of this food and then hopefully have this sort of like as an example of the possibility for people or other organizations and municipalities to integrate into other places around town. As a collective garden, we have more than one site. We have a site at the elementary school. We had one at the Château des Aînés. So it's really sort of a method to apply to whatever situation that you're in to make it possible to have these gardens provide food. Really, the goal is to grow food and to eat it with our community.
Well, good luck with the project, and thank you for telling us about it, Heather.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.